Hello, everyone, and welcome. If you have ever found yourself walking into a store like Target for toothpaste, walking out, pushing a shopping cart loaded with bags, and then coming home and hearing yourself complaining about the clutter, then the next hour or so is going to be worth your time. On the flip side, if you find yourself regularly having to run out at the last minute for a gift or supplies, then the hour is going to be equally beneficial. My name is Melissa Tosetti, and I am the founder of The Savvy Life. And for the past 8 years, I have been teaching savvy living through webinars such as this one, as well as in person classes all over the United States. When I'm not teaching, I spend most of my days working one on one with individuals and families to help them to plug their financial leaks, to streamline their spending, to create spending plans, and then most importantly, I teach them how to live within their plans. Part of teaching them how to live within their plans is teaching them savvy shopping, which is what you're going to learn today. Now, before we get started, one quick housekeeping matter. Your phone should have been muted as you logged in, and that's to keep the background noise to a minimum. I'm going to finish with time to spare to answer questions. If you do have questions, what I ask is if you could please type them into the questions section on your screen as I'm giving the presentation, and that will allow me to get right to them in those last few minutes. All right, so as you know from signing up for today's event, it is about shopping, how to save 20 to 80% on just about everything you buy. But it is about so much more than just saving money. It's about learning how to streamline your spending, picking and choosing what you bring into your home. As a culture, we have a tendency to use shopping as a form of entertainment. We go to a mall to spend an afternoon looking around. We spend our lunch hours on the computer perusing online stores, and with the convenience of a single click, can have an item delivered to our door the very next day. However, in my experience of working with so many clients over so many years, what I see is through this habit of shopping, right? What that has a tendency to do is to actually distract us from our short and long term goals. And in addition to that distraction, in so many cases, that habit manifests itself into homes filled with clutter and the additional emotional and psychological frustrations that go along with it. One pattern that I've seen in the last couple of years come up when I'm working with clients is that a lot of clients that aren't necessarily happy in their jobs, especially if they work like a type of desk job, they'll spend their lunch hours shopping Amazon Prime, right, for example, and they'll use that to decompress during their work days. And a lot of executives, business owners, and C-level executives that I work with, they'll do that kind of decompression shopping, that stress-relieving shopping in the middle of the night, laying in bed on their phones. The pattern is fascinating. But what it really, again, comes back to is the fact that they're using shopping to decompress versus maybe talking about or thinking about a career change, right? Or finding some other way to go ahead and relieve that stress. And if you're walking a little bit close to the line as far as what your income and expenses look like, that shopping habit can very easily force you to stay in a job that you're not necessarily happy in just because of the spending habits you have. You have to work there in order to make that amount of money, and it just becomes a very vicious cycle. So it's one thing, to really to think about. I would say that from the very first webinar in this series, in this entire Savvy Living series, starting with Savvy Money Habits, you've learned the foundational tools for savvy shopping, beginning with the Savvy Life philosophy. And if you'll remember, the Savvy Life philosophy is simply to save on the things that are not as important to you so you can focus your spending on the things that are. Really just boils down to purposeful spending. Just as a reminder, the example I always give of that philosophy in action is how my husband Paul and I use it. We determined many years ago that we are not car people. So we choose to, when we need to replace one of our cars, buy very nice, reliable used cars. But the money we save by not having two separate car payments allows us to put a fair share amount of money toward what we really want to spend on, which is travel. So that's an example of using that philosophy on a grand scale. But we actually take that philosophy with us to every store and during every shopping opportunity we come across. It's our habit. And so for an example, if I'm at the mall and I see a pair of boots that catch my eye, I'm not a shoe person, but I will admit that I really like boots, then I have some checkpoints on whether or not those boots are going to come home with me. For example, what I typically will do, because travel is really where I want to spend my money, is I'll just ask myself, do I really love those boots, or would I rather spend that $150 on an experience during our next trip to England, or whatever that next trip might be. But I'm constantly giving myself a checkpoint to make sure that my money is really going where I want it to go. So again, we have to keep in mind that what we spend in one area massively impacts or directly impacts what we have to spend on other areas of our life. Again, on a grand scale, such as cars, but on a microscopic scale, such as those wonderful boots. So we need to get back into the process of making conscious spending decisions, not from the perspective of being on a budget or scarcity, but from the perspective of what you choose to spend your money on and bring into your life. So as part of becoming conscious of our spending decisions, again, we need to remember that money affects everything. It affects where we live, what we eat, what we wear, what we do with our free time. And that, again, is why I teach personal finance from a lifestyle perspective, focusing on teaching those critical day-to-day money habits. Focusing on, you remember, knowing where you stand on a daily basis financially so you can make those smart money decisions. Dining out because you want to go to that particular restaurant, not because there are no groceries in the house. Enjoying your time off so much more because you planned for it. Having a closet filled only with clothes that you love because you've taken time and you've been purposeful and built a wardrobe. Having a home that is your personal sanctuary because it's only filled with things that you absolutely love, and there's not, piles of clutter in every room. So one thing I want to express to you to keep in mind is that as you begin to implement the savvy shopping techniques that you're going to learn today, it is imperative that you remember the golden rule of personal finance. And that is, no matter how good the sale, you have to spend less than you make. Absolutely have to spend less than you make. So remember that. Remember that. Take it and run with it. If nothing else, if you take away nothing else from today's presentation, but go with that, then I feel like my time with you has been well spent, and vice versa. All right. So when it comes to savvy shopping, there are a handful of foundational tools that will help you to get organized and to stay on track. And the first tool is your calendar. And the habit of using your calendar, basically it's picking one day a week and actually putting a slot on your calendar, which is kind of funny when you think about it, but basically blocking out time on your calendar for you to review that calendar for the coming week, the coming month, and the coming quarter. And so, for example, you're going to look at a microscopic level at the upcoming week. And what you're looking for are what are the maybe out of the ordinary purchases that you need to make in that coming week, and so that you can, again, plan for them. This is what really saves you on having to drop everything at the last minute to run out and to make a purchase. And when you're doing that, you're just going to buy what you can find versus buying what you really want, or giving yourself an opportunity to find it at the price that you want to pay. This is something that I typically do. My husband and I do. We'll sit down on a Wednesday, and we'll review for, it'll give us a chance to look through the weekend. The weekend's coming up pretty quick. And we're just looking for, events that we need to go to, that we might need to bake something up for a potluck, that we might need an ingredient that we wouldn't normally need, that we would forget about when we were making our grocery list. It could be, an outfit for an event that we're going to. If you are traveling in the next week or so and you know that you need to replace your suitcase, again, this gives you an opportunity to look and say, okay, I'm actually going to be going to the mall or going to be driving by the mall next Tuesday. That's a perfect opportunity for me to swing by and pick up a suitcase while I'm there. Versus, again, oh my gosh, my trip is tomorrow and I have, my suitcase is broken and I need to replace it right now. That's what we're really, really, really trying to let go of. So again, at a microscopic level, what is going on in the next week? And then at a little bit higher elevation, what events are coming up in the coming weeks that you need to be aware of? This gives you an opportunity to think about gift giving, right? Again, buying the gift that you want to buy at the price you want to pay is a wonderful thing to do. An event that you might have a very close friend's wedding that you want to make sure that you want to buy a new outfit for, whatever that might be. But this gives you the opportunity to plan ahead and get you out of that reactionary mode. Again, too often this kind of shopping is an afterthought, and we run out of time, and we purchase something for now, and I'm doing air quotes. Again, very often spending more than we want to, then we're dissatisfied with that purchase, and we end up purchasing another item down the road, wasting time, wasting money. All right? The second item on here is one of my absolute favorite tools, end of story, and that is a spending book. And what a spending book is, it's simply a blank notebook that you keep with you at all times. And some of my clients, they actually use an app on their phone for this, and it's just gives you an opportunity to write down the things that you want to buy. This is not where you put your grocery list. This is where you put the, maybe you want to buy a pair of boots. Maybe it's a lamp for the living room, whatever that might be. But by writing it down, you're creating an intention. You've decided in advance, this is something that I want to buy. And it gives you a chance to become very focused when you do go shopping. So I'll give you an example of using that spending book in play. Before you walk into a store, like let's just say you're going to the mall. Before you walk in the door, you're going to open up your spending book, and you're just going to give yourself a chance to review. Look, these are the things I decided in advance I want to buy, so I'm going to stay focused. But it's also going to remind you, these are the things I want to buy. I have to keep an eye out for them. If you've ever had the experience of going to a store where something that you've wanted to buy is there, it's just that it wasn't on your radar when you walked in the door, and you get home and you realize you lost that opportunity, then you've just wasted time when you really could have purchased that when you were actually at that store, executed, and then you move on to the next thing that you would like to purchase. One of the things that I will say about the spending book, and actually before I forget, I teased you a little bit. I mentioned that most of my clients use just a little notebook, and I really suggest going ahead and buying something that is that you would just really enjoy writing in, okay, and keeping with you. But there are other clients that I have that want to use their smartphones to keep track of that, and they'll use an app. They all use an app called Evernote, and that's E as in elephant, V as in Victor, E as in elephant, and Evernote. You get the idea, okay? All right, so the other thing about that spending book that is incredibly powerful is to use it not just for the things you want to buy, but the experiences that you want to have. I will fully admit my list of things that I want to buy is pretty small. But I keep my spending book because it makes sure that I do focus and actually execute and make those purchases. But I really get the most out of my spending book writing down the restaurants that I want to go to, the books that I want to pick up. One of my favorite things is to pick up books that use bookstores, so that helps keep me focused. Trips that I want to go on. We're about an hour and a half. I live about an hour and a half from wine country, Napa, Sonoma area. And I might read about a winery that is really cool in that area. But 3 months from now, when I actually go up to visit wine country, I'm never in a million years going to remember the name of that particular winery when I read about it. And so I will write it down in my spending book. And that actually allows me to be that much more purposeful in the time I have available. And I think when I think about spending books, I really think that you are writing down the life you want to live. It really just it's a tool for helping you to plan and just to be, again, that much more purposeful with your time and with your money. All right? I've waxed philosophic about spending books long enough. So the next one is online sales ads. I am a big fan if I don't have to walk into a store. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. Traffic around here is ridiculous. So if I can look online to see if what I want to buy is on sale before ever having to walk into a store, I'm that much happier. But I find for a lot of clients, when they get into the habit of checking their favorite store's sales ads on a weekly basis, it helps. It helps to if they so they're not just going in and going shopping. Is what they want to buy, is it going to be on sale this week? If so, then they can go ahead and go and execute it or buy it online or whatever that might look like. But it just allows you to become that much more purposeful, that much more cognizant. If the things that you do want to buy do have a tendency to go on sale, then you can make sure that you're purchasing them when they're at the best possible price. Um, I check my favorite store sales ads on Sunday mornings. It's a ritual I created for myself probably 6, 7 years ago, and it just works for me. I would say maybe a third of the time I will actually execute and go buy. Again, my list of wants is fairly small, but even with that fairly small list, I am paying the price I want to pay for those particular items, and that those sales ads allow me to do that without having to actually go to the store. And you might tell by this point that I am not an online shopping person. I work with a lot of clients that have a lot of strategies around that. But for me myself, I'm tactile. I want to write things in my spending book. I want to actually go out and purchase things in person. It's a very strange habit for somebody who lives in the middle of Silicon Valley, but it works for me. So that's online sales ads, and then we've got the shopping cart ritual, and there's actually two different rituals around this. One is for online shopping, and one is for in-person shopping. I cannot take credit for the ritual for online shopping because it came from a very savvy client of mine. I worked with him. He's a professor at a university in Georgia, and one of the things that he was really struggling with is he was spending $200 to $400 a week on books. He has a passion project that he's been working on that the university doesn't cover the expenses for. And so he found, he would just throughout the week go ahead and purchase all these books until one day he realized, or it just kind of came to him, this thought that, okay, I'm going to actually just put into my online cart these books throughout the week. And then ironically, Sunday mornings, just like I do with the online sales ads, he actually sits down and he reviews everything in his cart. And what he found is he was buying about a third of the books that he was prior to that, because first of all, he would get sticker shock realizing just how much money he was spending in a week because he got to see it all at once, right? So that helped. But the other thing is he started to realize that very often the books were redundant, and one book would do, and so he wouldn't have to buy 3 books, just that one book would work for him. And he could take it and run with that. And I thought that was so absolutely clever, so purposeful, and just gives you an opportunity to be that much more conscious in our spending. One thing that I have really seen, a pattern I've seen, and I will fully admit that when I'm I can fall into the trap as well, is this idea that an advisor explained it title it very, very well, that we swipe, go, and not know. Meaning we're at a grocery store or we're at some store, we're standing in the checkout line, we swipe our card, we walk outside, we get to our car, and we realize we have no idea how much money we just spent, right? They make it all so easy. The same thing with places like Amazon Prime and online shopping. They make it as easy as possible. It's one click, and it's just so easy. You one click in the morning, you one click, in the afternoon, you one click throughout the day, and you realize that you've spent, hundreds of dollars on Amazon Prime or whatever that might be. Whereas if you looked at all that spending all at once, you might spend a little bit differently. So that is a fantastic ritual, and it is one that many, many of my clients have taken and run with since, and I've had great feedback from them about it. Now, the other aspect of that shopping cart ritual actually happens when you're at a store. And basically, if you've ever had the experience I talked about going to Target for one item and walking out pushing a shopping cart, what happens is, because places like Target and they're diabolical marketing geniuses, they just they make everything so appealing. And so you may be walking around the store and you're trying to stay focused and you're trying to stay to your list, and you realize that things are just kind of randomly jumping in your cart. Whether it was you that maybe picked something up, looked at it, and thought, oh, that's really cute, and you didn't even realize you put it into your cart versus putting it back. Or maybe it's family members helping you to shop. But the ritual is that as you approach the checkout line, you're just going to pull your cart to the side. And of the items that are in your cart that were not on your list, we call them stowaways. So of those stowaways, you're going to ask yourself, of each of those items, do I need it? Meaning, is this something that I need? Maybe I didn't remember to put it on my list, right? Or it is something that I didn't realize, well, this is going to solve a problem that I have. I'm actually going to use this. Or if the answer is no, there's still one more shot. And that other shot is, am I madly in love with it? Am I madly in love with it? And that may sound like an extreme thing to say or to ask, but you want to get into the habit of not bringing anything into your home that is not something that is just going to add value and just have you enjoy that item so much more. If you are not madly in love with it, the likelihood of that turning into clutter within the next 6 to 10 weeks is very, very high. All right. And so if the answer is no to both of those, then you put that item back or give it to the clerk and say that you changed your mind. All right. So those are the shopping tools. So now what I want to do is I want to go through some of the different categories of shopping and give you some ideas for how you may be able to spend smarter in those particular areas. I want to start actually by very briefly going over savvy food shopping techniques. And the reason that I want to start there is because for about 75% of the clients we work with, food is the number one area where we are able to easily save them time on grocery shopping, making the experience more enjoyable, but also saving them anywhere from 20 to 50% off their grocery bill. This is absolutely positively not about coupon clipping. This is simply about timing purchases. All right? All right. For those of you that were able to join us for the Savvy Kitchen webinar that we had back in April, there'll be a little bit of a review, but a refresher is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. And for those of you that this information is new, this is immediately implementable, that you can take and run with this and start saving immediately. All right. So the number one habit that has helped clients to save money on grocery shopping is to have a non-negotiable day to actually get to the grocery store. That may sound like a bit of a weird thing, right? And that is because what we're trying to do is grocery shopping is a critical task that needs to happen, a critical errand that needs to happen. You have to bring food into your house, right? Whether you're physically going to the grocery store or you're buying your groceries, ordering them online. But what happens is we try to fit this critical task into our ever-moving schedules or calendars, and so it becomes very, very frustrating, and there's really no ritual around it. So if we can create a ritual around it, so for me, I go and do my grocery shopping at 4 o'clock on Fridays. I try to get in there squeeze in there right before the 5 o'clock rush hour hits with that. That is my time to go. If I realize in advance I'm not going to be able to make that time, I put it on my calendar for a different day. Otherwise, again, trying to squeeze it in, it becomes very, very stressful. This helps to even out your spending on groceries because you're replenishing every week, so you don't have these highs and lows with your grocery spending. Makes it a little simpler because it's routine. You're able to, really get in and get out. And if you can find that sweet spot of time when you're going to be able to do it after work, I'm at my desk at 6:30 in the morning, so 4 o'clock I'm done with my day. That ends up working for me. Other clients, they do it Saturday mornings because they're fairly consistent. They know that they can get there. You just have to figure out what's going to work for you. Now, this is the key, again, with clients that have order their groceries to be delivered. One of our greatest success stories was a client that hated going to the grocery store, and so we created a ritual for them where on Thursday nights she gets her 3 children involved, so it's a valuable money lesson for their kids, and she has them run around and they identify what staples need to be replaced. They also decide what are the 3 meals that they want to cook the following week with the idea of cook once, eat twice. And she decides, of those meals, what ingredients does she need to go ahead and purchase for them. Beauty of that process is getting the kids involved and having them help decide what is for dinner the next week, is they can't complain because they help decide. But again, it's teaching them a very critical life skill. We ended up being able to help them save $750 a month on food by that simple process. And she never had to. I can't say she never had to walk into a grocery store, but it was far, far, far fewer than what she was doing before those times. All right? So that's number one. Number two, for most grocery stores, and again, I work with clients in just about every state in the United States, we find that most grocery stores, if they do have sales, their sales run on a 6-week cycle, meaning anything that regularly goes on sale will go on sale at least every 6 weeks. So if you start to look at those circulars and you start to see the pattern, it takes a little bit of time to really understand what and really see those patterns and see those cycles. But if you take the time to do this, and it doesn't take an hour, 5 minutes of your time once a week to look at those sales ads compared to what you buy regularly, you can get to a point where anything that you purchase regularly, you're only going to purchase it when it is on sale. And this is the way that we are able to save clients so much money. Regularly, 30%. Regularly, 30%. I have not paid full price for a can of corn in about, I would say, 17 years. And that may sound like a silly thing. That's great, Melissa. You're saving 10 cents on a can of corn. Well, I'm actually saving a little bit more than that. But it's the fact that, yeah, I do that, but I do that every week. I make cornbread for my family almost on a weekly basis, so I'm using a can of corn every week. But I've been doing that for 17 years. It's not just that one can of corn. It's the Coca-Cola I buy for my husband. It's the flour I buy for baking. It's again, anything that goes on sale regularly that we use, I'm buying it on sale. And so consistently, our grocery bill has dropped down by 30%. Simply by timing. So give it a try. And if you have specific questions on this, again, type your questions into the question section on your screen, and I will be very, very happy to go into greater detail about it. One thing you probably are very aware of, the sticking to purchasing food at the grocery store and buying your other cleaning projects, cleaning products, pet food, those type of things, buy those at other stores. For food, grocery stores have a very, very low margin on how much money they're actually making, and they will let a lot of items go at a loss simply to try to get you to come into that store to buy other things while you're there. Where they make their money is on the dog foods, the cleaning products, the paper products, the seasonal items. You know how they make you walk through the, right now it's all the summer fun outdoor stuff. They're making you walk through that in order to get the milk on a weekly basis. So buy those items at places like Target and you will save. And then finally, as far as food goes, just one other tip is to take advantage of holiday sales. I mentioned that most grocery stores, they will offer on a fairly regular basis some products at a loss to them to get you to come in the store because they know that while you're there, you're going to spend money on other things. So if you know that, you know what, it's Memorial Day weekend this weekend, everything barbecue is going to be on sale. Fantastic time to stock up on hamburger buns, hot dog buns, hot dogs, condiments, right? That is when I'll buy, 2 of each of those because I know over the course of the next couple of months we'll be using them. So I do that for Memorial Day, I do that for 4th of July, and I do that for Labor Day. And that gets me through a good part of the year buying all those items on sale. I know that baking items are going to be at the best possible prices around the holidays and also around Easter. And so I stock up at that time on those things. All my seasonings that need to be replaced, I replace them at that time. And the beauty of that is over the course of the 6 weeks between Thanksgiving, and New Year's, I have 6 sales ads that are going to be coming through. And each week, another sale baking item will be at a fantastic price, and I'll take advantage of that. Obviously, turkeys and hams are really great sales during those time periods as well. And the week of New Year's Eve is a fantastic time to stock up your bar. All right, so you get the idea, though. All right, take and run with this. Next, on the next shopping category is on clothes. And again, we touched on a lot of this during the Savvy Wardrobe webinar, but I think it's definitely worth revisiting. First of all, know that there's a season for most different types of clothes. In the fall, you've got kids' clothes that are at some of the best prices, as well as corporate wear, right? During the winter, obviously, outerwear. Spring is dress clothes, because the retailers are thinking Easter, they're thinking weddings, and that's when some of those great prices are going on there. And then during the summer is a great time to pick up accessories, jewelry, tank tops, that type of thing. All right. So those are the seasons, right? But within each season, there's a sales cycle, and we are actually this week coming up on one of my favorite sales cycles to demonstrate, and that is summer clothing. So this weekend is Memorial Day weekend, and retailers will offer an introductory sale price in order, again, to get you to come into the stores, right? And so this weekend, you're going to see sales on summer clothing at, anywhere between 15 and 20, 25%. It really depends on how the clothing industry has done in any given year, is how they base what their sales are going to look like. But it's the beauty of going in at the introductory sale time period is there will be decent prices on clothes, but there's going to be plenty of inventory, okay? Now come 4th of July, they're going to offer a peak season sale, and so you're going to see deeper discounts. Now you're going to see clothes at anywhere from 20 to maybe 30 to 40%. Again, it depends on how the retail industry has done that year. Again, there's still a pretty decent amount of inventory. Prices are a little bit deeper. Come July 5th, according to the retail industry, summer is over. The kids should be back in school, and they start offering clearance sales. Now, this is especially the case for summer more than any of these other seasons, because the clothing industry makes more money on fall clothes, kids' clothes especially, than they do any other time of year. So the faster they can get those summer clothes off of the floors, the faster they can get those fall clothes in. And so every single week, you're going to see those summer clothing sales prices fall. The challenge, though, is that the inventory won't be as great, especially if you wear a size that is like a medium size. Medium sizes, because they're medium, right? They tend to just get picked clean very, very early. So you simply have to decide when is it, based on what it is that you need, or what is it that you want to purchase, when is going to be the best time in order to go in and take advantage of these sales. All right? All right, so let's talk about beauty products. Beauty products and toiletries is an area that it is so ridiculously easy to overspend. So a few things to keep in mind. Drugstores regularly offer 50%. Basically, it's buy one get one 50% off sales. That is their routine from San Francisco to New York. That is the business model that drugstores are using for their sales, the sales that they offer. So if you pay attention to those sales, it is quite possible, and you're willing to buy one to get the other one at the discount price, that you can regularly save 25% on those beauty or drugstore items. So we're talking makeup, skincare, hair care, toothpaste, those types of things, right? Regularly save 25% on those items. The one thing to keep in mind about beauty products is that, and those sales, is that those sales are actually on a much shorter sales cycle, which is great. So drugstores are actually running those sales every 2 to 4 weeks. So the consciousness here needs to happen around when you're starting to run out of an item and starting to look at the sales ads so you can time it to where you don't completely run out and you can systematically save that amount of money on everything that you would buy at a at a drugstore that actually does go on sale. Okay. Um, One of the challenges of beauty products is finding products that actually work. Again, it's so very, very easy to spend searching for something that is going to be, a solid product. I have long been a fan of Allure Magazine's Best of Beauty list. So Allure Magazine has an editorial group that all they do is test beauty products. All the new beauty products are coming out. They test them against the tried and true beauty products that are out there, and they will do their, top 3, top 5 beauty products at, drugstore prices, at department store prices, at spa prices. And so you can, much easier than you spending money trying those products out yourself, you can go to that list and take a look and to see what product it is that you want, and you get to see what is in your price range as well. Anytime that I am looking for a beauty product outside of what I typically buy, I always, always, always go and check out what their advice is, and I have never been disappointed. When it comes to cosmetics, understandably, a lot of people want to try before they buy, and so the idea of doing drugstore products is not appealing to them. So going to department stores where you can actually have somebody help you pick out items that are going to work best for you, quality products, it makes perfect sense. It does, again, give you that opportunity to try those items before you buy. One thing you may want to consider doing, and I learned this from a Hollywood makeup artist, is that when you do try one of their products, ask to borrow one of their hand mirrors and go outside and look at that product outside with that hand mirror versus just inside the department store, because the lighting can be very funky. And what looks great there is really not going to look good outside. So it's just an extra tip to make sure that, another gatekeeper, make sure that you're walking away with a product that you really, really want. The one thing that I will say, though, about department stores is that when it comes to skincare, many of the people that are working at department stores that are giving skincare are on commission, right? It is their job to, you ask for one product, but it is their job. They are told that they have to show you 3 other products. They want to upsell, understandably. It's what they do for a living. And very often, a lot of those people behind the makeup counter are like, teenagers or in their early 20s. So not necessarily the people that you want to be getting skincare advice from. And I'm not saying that there aren't really good products there. It's just that it's such a very personal thing. The best person to give you skincare advice is actually a dermatologist. The beauty of that is that for most people, their healthcare insurance will cover that. So you're getting advice from a doctor, from a professional, and it's paid for. So it's even better. So it's just one thing to consider when it comes to beauty shopping. Okay? All right. For those of you that are going to be on the lookout for a new car purchase in the coming year or so, there's a couple tips to keep in mind. The earlier you start looking around and shopping, the better your opportunity. For a couple different reasons. The last thing you want is to have to make a car purchase at the last minute because your car finally died, and now you're going to start looking around for what it is that you want. But you were without a car, you need to replace it. So it's just too easy to make a decision and end up finding something that isn't just going to be right, or you're not going to be madly in love with it. So start doing if you think that you're going to need to replace your car within the next year or two, now is the perfect time to start looking around. Start asking friends and family members, about the cars that they enjoy. If you travel a lot, try finding that car to rent to give you a chance to be in it for a couple of days to see if that's going to work for you. You may decide that you don't like the way that the car backs up, or um, whatever that might be. But this gives you a chance to figure that out before you have to actually make car payments on it, and it's too late. Okay. When you're getting ready to actually pull the trigger, you may want to consider trying to do your shopping during the week rather than on the weekend when everybody else is out car shopping too. A couple things: you're going to have a salesperson's attention. They're not going to be in a hurry to try to get to the next sale because there's so many people on the lot that need to be helped and they can make so much money. They may just be a little bit more willing to negotiate with you as well if they don't have a lot of other customers on their lot. That being said, too, they have quotas. They're salespeople, right? So the last day of the month, the last day of the quarter, the last day of the year, if you're going to be doing shopping on a sales lot, it's fantastic times to do that. Also in the fall and in December, very much like that clothing example that I gave you, where retailers are trying to get rid of the summer clothes so they can get those fall clothes out there. The same thing happens with cars. The new models for the new year are already coming out, and so they want to get rid of those older models because they're not going to make as much money on them, so they'll start discounting them. So yeah, more than anything, just do your research. Just do your research. I will tell you just two very quick stories that I had and my business partner Kevin had about the car purchases that we made. Kevin actually, he knew exactly the car that he wanted. He's a fantastic researcher. But his wife is an even better researcher. And he's probably laughing when he hears this. His wife found the car that he wanted to buy at about $4,000 under asking price. The catch was that we live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and the car was actually down in the Los Angeles area. And so he sat down and did the research and asked the dealer if he would hold it for 24 hours so that he could fly down, test drive the car, and then make the decision. It would cost him maybe $100 in a ticket, in a plane ticket, if he decided to go ahead and buy the car. $200 in a plane ticket, so he could get back if he decided not to buy the car. But that compared to saving $4,000 on that car, it worked, and he ended up driving the car home. It's a beautiful black Mustang. So that was, time well spent, and it was simply because he had done the research in advance. He knew what he wanted when it was time to replace the car. Actually, before it was time to replace the car. And his wife is just tenacious when it comes to shopping, and she found a great deal. And in my experience, I knew for years the car that I wanted to buy when it was time to replace my car that had 170,000 miles on it. Or no, it was 17 years old. Yeah, it had over 200,000 miles on it. And I started looking around and realized that rental car agencies actually had the car that I wanted, that I was very interested in. And you could go online and you could actually see actual cars that they were going ahead and letting go after they had run their course of being used as rental cars. These cars are serviced very, very well. And so I just kept my eye on it. And at one point in October, I think this was 3 years ago now, the car that I wanted to buy at the price I wanted to pay and the color I wanted was actually discounted by an additional $500 for Hertz Gold members, which I was a member of. And that was it. I went down and I actually had an opportunity. They let you rent it or drive it for 3 days. If you decide not to buy it, then you just pay for the 3-day rental or 1-day rental or however long you have it. If you do decide to buy it, then there's no fee for renting it. So you actually get to really, really drive it and check it out. So a couple of different ways. The beauty of it in this day and age is it's almost limitless how you can go ahead and acquire a car, but really that key is doing the research in advance. Okay? All right. We talked about seasons and timing. In any given month, there are deeper sales on particular categories of items than there are at other times. And if you can kind of hold off and pay attention and be proactive, you can buy at great discounts. December and January, large appliances. The retail industry believes that for the holidays, the greatest gift you can give your family is a new dishwasher. That's great. You get an opportunity to take advantage of that sale, right? And then in January, those items are going to be at deeper discount because that season is past, right? And they need to clear the items because coming in February, they want room for those big screen TVs because of the Super Bowl, right? Or January, February. Also, February tends to be a big time for electronics because the Consumer Electronics Show, the big electronics show in Las Vegas, that is in February, and all the new stuff comes out, and so they want to go ahead and start reducing prices on their older models of electronics to make room for the new stuff. Again, the stuff they're going to make more money off of. January, obviously, it's towels and linens. That's been a tradition for decades. For some reason, February is also a time where furniture tends to be at better prices than other times of year. March, of course, we have cleaning products, spring cleaning, and then garden supplies. Retailers are trying to get you in the door, buy those garden items. July 5th, you can buy barbecues at pretty decent prices towards the beginning of summer, but again, come July 5th, barbecue season's over. It's time for the holidays, and so they're going to get deeper discounts. And then, of course, in August, you have office products because kids are going back to school. But it's not just, paper and pencils anymore like it was when I was a kid. You can get Post-it notes at great prices in August. It's a funny thing. I actually got into the habit. I try to buy for my office everything that I'm going to need for the coming year in that time period, and it is absolutely worth it because I can save 20 to 40% on those items, and I have them on hand, and I'm not having to drop everything to run out and go buy those items anymore. On the another back to school sales advantage or sales that you can take advantage of is actually anything that will go in a dorm. So, for example, microwaves, some of the best prices of the year. You get the idea, and you can take and run with that. So just keep in mind the seasonal sales. All right? All right. Gift giving, I find for so many clients, this is one of the biggest challenges, is really being much more purposeful in spending or having parameters on what makes sense to spend. One of the biggest questions I get asked outside of how much money should I be spending on groceries or clothes is how much money should I be spending on the holidays? It's very, very personal question, but a rule of thumb, and I actually got this from Greg Clark, who used to be the columnist for the Chicago Tribune. The rule of thumb is to spend no more than 1.5% of your annual take-home pay on the holidays. I'm going to say that again because it's a mouthful. Spend no more than 1.5% of your annual take-home pay. Now, the reason this is a rule of thumb is I have a client that makes a six-figure salary but has one niece that she buys gifts for. She's not going to spend that much money on that one niece. On the flip side, I gave this presentation to a group, in person to a group in the Central Valley here in California, and this lovely couple came up to me afterwards, and they said that they loved the idea of it, but they have 19 grandchildren. So they're spending a little bit more than that on buying gifts for their grandchildren. But again, it gives you a starting point. It gives you an idea to figure out what's going to make the most sense for you. I am a crazy mad fan of having a dedicated savings account to save up for the holidays. Put a little bit of money into that account each month, and when November comes around, that money is saved, and you can just start shopping. One thing that I very often see is that we make a list and then we figure out what our budget is versus the other way around. You have so much to spend on the holidays that is going to make sense for your financial situation so you don't get into a negative situation. Figure out what that number is and then make your list. All right? It'll give you a chance to maybe get a little bit pickier about who's on the list or a little bit more focused about how much you're going to spend on each of those items. But it has to be that way. It cannot be the other way around because it's just too easy to start overspending. That sales ad practice that we talked about earlier about checking the sales ads on a weekly basis, this is a fantastic time to put that process into play. Again, it not only gives you some ideas for what you could possibly buy, but those ideas are actually going to be at some of the best prices during that season. So it's win-win, right? And it keeps you out of the store until it's time to go in and pull the trigger on an item. I will say that one thing that I had to learn the hard way is to shop systematically around the holidays. I would just get very wishy-washy on things, and I would find myself back at the same stores again every week until the pressure built and we were getting too close to the holiday actually happening. And then I'd have to pull the trigger, and I'd waste so much time, energy, and effort. And so when I'm shopping during the holidays, I try to look at each store as in I do not want to come back into the store until the new year. So I'm going to look thoroughly, and I'm going to look for everybody on my list, not just the people who I really think this is going to be, I think I'm going to find that one gift for that one person at this one store. All right. One thing that you may want to consider is that maybe the people on your list, maybe it's time to not purchase actual gifts for them. Maybe there are alternative ideas that you would all enjoy so much more. And the reason I say this is because this is something that friends of mine and my husband that we execute every year. And we've been doing this now for almost 19 years. And that is that instead of buying gifts for each other, we actually rent a cabin together over President's Day weekend. And we spend that time, typically we try to go up to Tahoe, so if there's snow, we're sledding, we're eating, we're drinking, and just really the experience of that time together over any little knickknack that we would give to each other is huge. And I say this every single time I talk about this, and that my favorite memories, some of my favorite memories, are time spent over that President's Day weekend with those people. And that group has grown from originally it was like 6 of us, and now it's closer to 16 of us that regularly go, and it's priceless. It's priceless. So you may want to consider that with friends or family members. And then the other thing I would add about the gift giving is to try to avoid the trap. And the trap is that through all the tools that we've talked about today, the timing of purchases, it is very likely that you are going to be saving a tremendous amount of money on your gift giving this year. It is too easy to go and find the perfect gift for somebody, find it on sale, and think, oh, I only spent $15 on that perfect gift for my brother. I should get them something else as well. That's the trap. The fact is that your brother has no idea how much money you just spent, and it's not about the money, it's about the gift. It is about the gift. So when you have made that purchase, you are done. Write it off and try very hard when you are done with your shopping to not walk back into those stores because it's just too easy to keep on shopping. All right? And the last thing I want to touch on is actually gift giving throughout the year, because again, this is one of those areas where I just see people struggle from a time perspective, from an overspending perspective. And I think it is important to be very proactive about it, and the easiest way to do that is to create a list, in January, whose birthdays are coming up, or wedding, or whatever that might be, and just be so far ahead of the game. Each month you're looking at that list when you're implementing that calendar habit each week, right? And it reminds you, hey, my brother's birthday, I'm giving a lot of gifts to my brother right now, but my brother's birthday is coming up. I want to make sure that I get him something really nice. I'm going to keep an eye out and keep that top of mind when I'm shopping or when I'm at a store doing something else. So again, gives me the opportunity to buy what I want to buy at the price I want to pay. And for a lot of clients, very much like the holidays, they actually have a dedicated savings account for gift giving as well. Because gift giving tends to be intermittent spending. You might not spend anything over 3 months, but then you might have 5 birthdays in 1 month, which can decimate a monthly spending plan. And so this allows you in those 3 months, you can save a little each of those months. When those 5, gift giving events come up, the money is there and you're not having to sweat it. All right? All right, so now you have the tools you need to spend with purpose, and also to save, as I mentioned, anywhere from 20 to 50% on what you choose to buy. Before I check in to see if there are any questions, I do want to let you know that the next webinar and the last one in the Savvy Living webinar series is going to be on Tuesday, June 26th, and that is focused on Savvy holidays. I scratched the surface with some of the suggestions that I gave you. There is so much more information to help you save time, money, and your sanity in the last 6 weeks of the year. That event is very, very near and dear to my heart, and I feel like it is hugely impactful, and June is a fantastic time to actually have that conversation, not in December when it's too late. All right? All right, so I encourage you to listen in on that. Invite your friends and family members to attend when you get that invitation from your advisor. And with that, I'm going to go and see if we have any questions. All right, so we do have a question, and that is about dollar stores, what to buy and what to avoid. That is an excellent question, and it's funny because the dollar store industry is one of the most successful industries in the United States right now. So as far as shopping there, I'm not a big fan of buying food stuff there, but I will go in there for greeting cards, anything to do with parties, wrapping paper, seasonal items. If you've got, sometimes they have a lot of junk, but sometimes they'll have really, really cute things for seasonal items. Not a big fan of their household items because I find that they're just kind of they don't hold up. But every once in a while, if you shop well, you can get something that will, and you can't beat the price. All right. Let's see if there are any other questions. See, another question, gift giving. I buy throughout the year, but then I find something better later. How do I control this? Yes. You're in good company. That is a big one. So part of it is if you do buy throughout the year, and we've got a lot of clients that are travelers, and so they'll buy on their travels, and they'll bring those items back. At some point, you have to stop. You just have to say, look, I've got this item, I'm going to give them this, and maybe I'll write on my spending book for next time that I'll give them this other item. The challenge with this is that we find that with clients, there are clients that gift giving is in their DNA. It's a part of how they express their feelings for their friends and their family members, and it can be very challenging then to tell them to stop. And so we do what we can in order to work with them, but at some point, you really do just need to do that weighing. I bought this item for that person. I really do want to give it, but this other item is really, really, really so cool. Then you're weighing and saying, well, maybe the other item that you initially bought for them, you could give to somebody else. But you've got to be mindful about it. You've got to be conscious about it. So there's no hard, fast system for it. It's really thinking through each time that experience or staying out of the stores. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So I will tell you again, this is a key component of living a savvy life is savvy shopping. And I find that when we can help clients to create habits and rituals around it, not only are they saving money, but they're just saving time and stress as well. So if you can take and run with even just some of the items today, let us know how it's helped you. Let us know if you have more ideas around savvy shopping. But we'd love to hear from you. You can email me at melissa@thesavvylife.com, or if down the road you have questions from your own experiences, please, again, shoot me an email, melissa@thesavvylife.com. And I want to thank you very much for joining us today.